Well, good evening. We are a minute early, but that is quite all right. I'm excited to kick off night number 3 with the Fatherhood Table Alive series. And tonight we have my campus elder, Wayne Martin Jr., who is also running for District 11 councilman. So I am excited. I hope you guys are. My name is Monica McQueen. I am the author of The Gift of Forgiveness, Unpacking the Impact of Fatherlessness and Restoration. And like I said, tonight I'm joined by Wayne Martin Jr., elder, councilman. If you could please introduce yourself and let people know a little bit about who you are.
No, absolutely. So first of all, thank you, Monica, for inviting me to be a part of this impactful conversation. I think fatherhood is one of the most important aspects of all communities, but certainly the Black community and the faith community. That's fatherhood, not just for those who have physically fathered children, but the men in our community are important pillars and backbones. So thank you for leading this conversation, for being courageous, having the candor to tell your story, and the just the passion to ask and invoke others to share theirs. We need people beating the drum of community and conversation. You're doing a great job at that. I am the father of 3. I have a child that is as young as 9, who is, as what you would imagine a 9-year-old boy would be, full of imagination, energy. It's full of fun. Then I have a 17-year-old son. That's what you would imagine a 17-year-old would be. One word answers for everything. Doesn't really get excited over anything anymore. A real full-fledged teenager. Very respectful, but just a full-fledged teenager. And then I have a newly minted adult who turned 21 years old, my only daughter, who turned 21 years old yesterday. So my fatherhood really spans the spectrum of ages and experience. And so I'm really excited about the conversation. I'm from Atlanta, grew up here. I've worked across a number of organizations, but all sort of in the government affairs space, from public sector jobs in the government affairs space to working for some of the largest brands in the world, corporations. I have a wonderful wife who many of you may know, Emily, and we are doing this thing called life together. For all its challenges, ups and downs, God is with us, and we're grateful to be on the journey.
I love that. Yes, he has an amazing family, beautiful wife, beautiful spirit, kind and everything. And Ethan is amazing. But yes, to your point of a 9-year-old, I remember when he was singing in the choir, I showed everyone at my job that video of Ethan singing in the choir. They said,
Yes.
"Oh, he took this serious." I said, "He did."
Oh, he was serious. He was serious.
You could see the passion, like just the expressions and
Yes.
everything. I
I
said,
think he felt like his facial expressions helped the notes come out better. He couldn't have been more wrong, but I think he felt that way. So
but I love it. Okay, so you did just say that you have 3 children. So before we get into your journey of fatherhood, what was your journey like, or what was your relationship like with your father?
my relationship with my father was very strong.
Mm,
Uh, Monica, it's really and let me start by saying that my parents weren't always together. In fact, my parents are not married right now.
gotcha.
They the most amicable divorce I've ever seen, but they divorced each other legally
Mhm.
in 2020 or 2021. It's like the pandemic. I guess they were like bored. We don't have anything to do, and we don't want to be married anymore. So, but it was very amicable. They are around each other. They still participate in our lives, and they're grandparenting and all that stuff. My dad lives in Mississippi though, and
Okay.
my mom lives here in Atlanta. Actually, she's in Texas right now,
Okay.
and has been there for the last several weeks. But they're not married. But my father was always present in my life. He was a truck driver for 30 something years and took very good care of his family. He taught us what real love is, and I shared this recently, that real love is not just about words; it's about action. And he
Mhm.
showed us in his actions what real love. He shows us in his actions, not showed us. He shows us. He's still alive. I was with him last week in New Orleans.
Awesome.
What real love is, and he's a wonderful grandfather. And my son spent. I was in New Orleans on business, and my son spent several days with my uncle who's my dad's twin brother, and he was just hanging out with two 70-year-old men and his 70-year-old self, and they had a great time. But yeah, my experience with my dad's a man of faith. Um, we were actually ordained together on the same day.
Wow, that's awesome.
So yeah, so I had a great experience. The only thing I would probably ask for if I could do it all over again as a young man is that my dad not be a truck driver because that kept him,
Mhm.
on the road, and he was a long haul truck driver. I mean, we
Mhm.
talked to my dad, and he'd be in Arizona, you
Mhm.
know, Washington State, or up in Ontario, Canada, Windsor, Canada.
Mhm.
And so that's the only thing I would ask for differently. But other than that, my dad was a great dad, present in mind, body, and spirit, and I'm just grateful to have had him as a father and to have him as a father, quite frankly.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I have
Yeah,
a cousin. He drives long distance, and
yeah,
when I do get a chance to speak to him, I'm like, "Where are you in the world today?"
yeah,
That's part of the conversation. So it's good to check in, but you do miss to have that person in close proximity
absolutely,
as
absolutely.
you would want it. So I completely get that.
Yes,
So that's great. Um, and I love how Ethan just was so cool with just chilling with his
yeah.
twin brother.
He will make the best out of anything. He was my Ethan loves sports, and so he bought a football with him. And I'm
Mhm.
like, dude, you do realize that there are going to be any of the kids here? So who's going to be on the other end of that ball? And he was
Mhm.
like, granddad. I was like, oh, with granddad's bad knees and all of that. Okay, we'll
Right.
see. And at some point, some way, the ball landed on top of my uncle's house. My uncle lives in a suburb of New Orleans, and there was
Uh,
a whole story about a ladder and these 70-year-old men climbing the ladder trying to get this football down for this child that I would have left it up there. So I told them not to bring it, but they didn't want their grandson and great nephew not to have his football, so they climbed up there and got it. But he had a great time, and I really believe and this is a point I'll make and stop talking to give back to you as the moderator here and host is intergenerational fatherhood is important. It's important for kids to know older men, whether they be uncles or whether they be mentors in the community. It is very, very important because you learn how to emulate different aspects of fatherhood and manhood by, I was around a lot of senior men when I was a younger child. So people call me an old soul because of my style and taste in music and the way I treat other people and all those kinds of things. And a lot of it because I spent a lot of time with older, seasoned senior men in
Right.
church or not in church. It was just I spent time with men of all ages, and so that's really why it's important to me that my son. I don't know if everybody's getting the same Amber Alert right now, but I just got an Amber Alert on my iPhone. Um, but uh, but yeah, that's it's extremely important. So I just wanted to make that point. All right, I think we may have lost Monica. I think I'm still live, so I don't want there to be dead airspace. I know that can be very, very bad for someone that's streaming or on a television show. So, but as I was sharing, I think intergenerational fatherhood and manhood is very, very important for our young men to be exposed to, because how else will we as men learn how we are to govern ourselves and how important we are and how we are to move through life at the various stages of life if we do not see it emulated. We ought to know what it's like to be an old man, a senior man, and the maturity and the responsibility that comes along with that. We ought to know what it's like to be a middle-aged man. We ought to know what it's like to be, at every various stage, a new father. Young people need to see that so that we can emulate it. I'm in the 100 Black Men of Atlanta, and one of the things that we talk about, one of our mottos is what they see is what they will be. And we're talking about young people that we mentor through the 100 Black Men's programming. And we literally believe that you can hold a mirror up to yourself, and young people will become those things if they're given the right tools to do so. And so that's my approach to manhood and fatherhood. So I'm hoping that Monica will be able to come back soon because I am not a uh, broadcast or TV type. So I do much better in these kinds of settings when I'm able to talk to or be prompted by a host or someone else that is speaking or talking. So please come back, Monica, as soon as you can. But I'm just really deeply honored, as Monica shared. I am also running for office because I believe that we need to put into practice some policies and some programs in the city of Atlanta that really advances families, that really advances our young people, makes our communities safer, more holistic, and really, quite frankly, more rich with opportunity for all people. Thank you so much for coming back to me because I've been filling in time.
He's
Because
a
I
way maker.
There you go.
Let's
All right.
let's I don't know. That Amber Alert did something.
Yes, I knew it was coming. It's like nothing happens until it doesn't need to happen.
I'm back.
But I never stopped talking. There was no dead airspace. The
I
audience
appreciate
can chime in and they can attest to that. I never stopped talking.
I appreciate that. I'm so sorry to put you in that
We
predicament.
talked about you real bad though. I mean, real bad.
It's okay. I'll go back and watch the
No, we
replay.
did not. We did not.
I know. Mercedes said he was doing an amazing job. You have the right person on for that.
Thank you, Mercedes. I appreciate it.
Yes, yes. Mercedes is going to be my special guest this Sunday at church.
All right. All right. Looking forward to meeting you, Mercedes.
Hey Angela. Sorry, I'm seeing people. Hey Angela. Got some Spirit and Truth family in here. I don't know what you were saying, but I'm sure that it was great. We're just going to keep it moving.
Go.
And let me take that off. So you mentioned that you have 3 children and they span
Yes.
from different ages.
Yeah.
What has been your journey like
Yeah.
as
That's a great question. My journey as a father really started when I wasn't quite still a child, but I was definitely a very much young adult. So I'll be 42 in about 45 days on July 25th. I know I look much younger.
You do.
But yeah, and my daughter turned 21 yesterday.
Yeah.
So that means if you do a little quick math, that she was born when I was 20. And so our joke between the two of us, in fact, we took her to lunch yesterday. And the joke is we grew up together because I was not even 21. I turned 21 the following month after my daughter was born. But the first time I was, a lot of people don't know this story that I'm going to share. I was bound to law school after graduating from Morehouse. My plan was to go to law school, and I had been accepted and all those things. And I ended up not doing it. I was planning to go until I saw this baby. And I was like, no, I'm not going to leave this baby here because she was born in between my junior and senior year. And so I was like, no, we'll just figure out a different pathway, or maybe I'll go later, but I'll figure it out. But I don't want her mom, who we were not in a relationship at the time. I didn't want her mom figuring out by herself, a baby. And I just felt immediately a kinship to this baby. I think the mother probably feels that because the mother's carrying the baby in her body. But as a dad, especially one that doesn't live with or, is not married to or experiencing the pregnancy with the mom day to day, it's really hard to build that bond. But as soon as I saw this baby, this beautiful baby girl, and I saw that Martin forehead, I was like, oh, yeah, I can't leave her. And, I will tell you in a spiritual sense, I think God honored that. I don't even want to call it a sacrifice. It's the right thing to do, right? It's just the right thing to do. It's, I don't think you want to, I don't believe in giving somebody cookies for something they're supposed to do anyway.
Right.
It's just like, okay, you're a dad. Fantastic. This baby's diaper needs to be changed. That's what dads do. And so, my daughter now works for me. So that 21-year-old is she's a college student, full-time student, but she's far enough along that she's fully online and remote. So she works for me every day. And, when she's not working, she goes to class, summer break right now. But making that decision and choice to remain present in her life. And then her mom and I ultimately got married. And we have our second child or her little brother, younger brother. It's not little. He don't want to call me. He wouldn't like me calling him little. Her younger brother was born of the marriage as well. And then we got divorced after 40 years of marriage. But I've still remained just a very active dad. I mean, I saw all 3 of my kids at some point today, and one of them was an adult because they're all very intertwined in my life. My daughter works for me. My son is in a program at Morehouse, so he's staying with me all summer. Drop him off in the morning. I have one of my assistants pick him up, bring him back to the office. He stayed around the office doing some stuff with the campaign for me. And Ethan has tried to walk in this room the door to the room I'm sitting in is right in front of or behind my computer. He
Mm.
started to walk in this room 3 times since we started talking. So he's probably heard his name. So he's come down here. But my point is, all 3 of my kids, um, and it's really hard to stop saying kids. My daughter's a full-fledged adult. She actually has her own apartment.
Yeah.
She is a fully independent adult. She works a job
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
all those things. And it's just really, I made a very sentimental post on social media yesterday. And I was like, man, I have an adult child. Um,
Right.
but I just believe that we have to do what is necessary to give our kids everything that we can as their parents. And that's
Right.
why I'm being very careful not to use the word sacrifice because
Yeah.
it is our reasonable service to be
Mhm.
parents. I can't speak for other people, but I'm not that person that, oh man, the sacrifice of fatherhood and the burden. And no,
Mhm.
we, those babies didn't ask to be brought into this world. We did the things that introduced them into this world and brought them here. And so
Mhm.
it is our responsibility to give them the best things that we can. And I'll stop on this note. I'm preparing to send out a message for Father's Day, and
Mhm.
I love this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. And if we
Mhm.
got any dads watching, I want all the dads to hear this. The quote is, "Fatherhood is not something perfect men do, but
Mhm.
something that perfects the man."
Mhm.
Our kids really do bring the best out of us. My
Yeah.
kids have brought the best out of me because if you're in it for the right reasons and you're in it to stay as a
Mhm.
dad or as a mom, but we're talking about dads right now. Whatever challenge arises, you're going to navigate through it, and that brings the best out of us as fathers. It has made me a more patient man to be a
Right.
dad. It has made me um, a more faith-filled man, even though I'm full of faith and I love the Lord. You know, going through certain things with a child can really press out of you a different level of faith.
Mhm.
Um, it can press out of you a different relationship with God. And lastly, it really it brings the teacher out
Mhm.
of you. And so fatherhood is to me the most important aspect of our community. Uh,
Mhm.
and it is important that we have these kinds of conversations. So again, I commend you for leading us in it.
Oh, thank you. You touched on a lot of great things. I just want to say that. And Angela said it was a great quote. I agree as well, Angela. I'm reminded of a time, just the word sacrifice,
Yeah.
being transparent. When I turned 18, my father had made the decision to stop paying child support.
Okay.
And his words to us, we were sitting down, uh, his words was just like, well, I did what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
I sacrificed because she was born not in the marriage that he was in.
Yeah.
My father was married when him and my mom met and did the things that brought me into this world.
Yeah.
Uh, and so when I heard the word sacrifice, I was like, that's what you were supposed to do.
Exactly. Exactly.
And the reason also behind it from him was, well, your mom and I didn't have a conversation about the next steps after you turn 18.
Yeah.
And so now that you're 18, it's up to you. And to your point, it's like, well, I did not ask to be here. I,
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's so good to hear you say and to have that perspective as a father and as a man
Yeah.
that you understand your role and your duty, and it's not a sacrifice. Yes, I'm sure there's sacrifices that come, maybe choosing between, well, Ethan has this game, but I have this meeting or something, like I need to prepare for this proposal or
Yeah.
presentation, something. You find the balance in things, but because he is your child and they are your children,
Yeah.
it's like it makes sense. And I don't understand where people are like, oh well, they'll be okay, or they understand I'm making sacrifices for the family, but you're not understanding to the fathers like how much of an impact that has on, I put myself in that category, us as children,
Yeah.
whether if we're young or even as we get older, because
Yeah.
it's going to still have a lasting impact on us,
Yeah.
either positive way or a negative way. Uh,
Absolutely.
I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, yes, sir. My second son keep.
I love it. It's always is he the youngest Mercedes? Because it's always that youngest that keeps you on the altar.
I'll let her answer. I know the answer, but I'll let her answer.
Yeah. But no, to the point that you made, it's very interesting that you talked about the child support thing. Um, you know, man, I remember, that moment came and my mom gave me some really good advice. She was like, whatever it is, pay it. I was like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We're going to take care of it. There it is. I knew it. Youngest child. I knew it. Keep you on your knees.
Uh,
Um,
I think actually her second son is the same age as Ethan, and
they,
Dylan is 9, 8 or 9. Yeah.
they need to meet each other. But
Oh, they would have a blast.
I know. I know. And me and Mercedes probably be really stressed out, and Emily. But my mom made this. She said, "Son, if because my mom, being a matriarch, a black woman in the black community, she'd
Mhm,
seen so many dads, even what we consider good men,
mhm,
that for whatever reason just would not do the right things when it comes to, or didn't do the right things
mhm,
to pay child support and support their children. And I guess she probably had like, it's like, hey, I'm the oldest of my mom's children, and so she was like, I just wanted, I don't have an example, and this
mhm,
is my first one, so I want to make sure we get this right.
mhm,
I need you taking care of your kids. I was like, well, I am, but I appreciate it. And what she told me was almost a prophetic moment. She was like, you do the right things with your babies, and God is going to do everything else.
mhm,
And when I tell you, her words have been completely manifested. Man, I mean, and I was making a decent amount of money back then for
mhm,
somebody that was at the age that I was.
mhm.
The thought of having that amount of money now would just really terrifying, because my point is my ability to earn money has grown so much from that
Mhm.
point to now, and a part of that is just good stewardship in general, from the spiritual perspective, which also includes taking care of our children, because
Abs-
the Bible commands us to take care of our children.
mhm.
So I don't know how a man would expect to, be prosperous in God and you're not taking care of your children, because the Bible tells
Mhm.
us to. And so, um, but one quick point, and I'll stop and give it back to
Mhm.
you, Monica. My daughter became an adult at 18, 3 years ago.
Right.
I can tell you from that point to this one, I stopped giving her mom child support money because, I mean, not for her, I did. Her
Right.
brother, he's still to this day.
Mhm.
And my son is, and you see this, Monica, he's with me a lot, but it
Mhm.
doesn't matter. She's got to keep a roof over his head and
Absolutely.
all those kind of things. And so, but my daughter, she probably, the amount of money I've given her before she came to start working for me, now she's on my payroll. So it's like, yeah, man, we not you ain't getting, you get a good salary, you got a good grown folk salary now. So
Listen, listen.
take care of your
Okay,
own
you work
business.
for Wayne Martin. He gonna take care of you.
Right, take care of your own business and bills. But before that, when she was a student, I'm paying her tuition out of pocket. I'm
Mhm.
paying books and living expenses, all that stuff, which actually probably added up to more than what the child support amount was, because it doesn't stop. If I want her to be successful, who better to invest in my child than me,
Mhm.
right? And that it's really paid off. I'm like watching her blossom. I mean, she planned her own trip for her birthday. She's going to Japan.
Okay.
I denied her time off, but she's still going some kind of way. I denied that PTO request, but she's still going.
Where is HR? We need
I'm
it.
HR. How about that? I'm HR. uh, but on a serious note, it doesn't stop. My son will graduate. Christopher will turn 18 in March of
Mhm.
2026. He'll be a
Mhm.
senior in high school, getting ready to go to college. There is no discussion about not continuing to support him. And I want to send this message to all brothers, all men.
Right, Angela?
Denied. All brothers, all men, take care of your children. It may cause a little bit of discomfort. It may cause you to have to, shift things, shuffle things. Again, notice I'm not using the word sacrifice,
Mhm.
because taking care of what you're supposed to take care of is not a sacrifice. It's not.
Absolutely.
It is what you're supposed to do. But take care of your children to the best of your
Mhm.
ability. Take care of them. Not only will they appreciate it, will you be a better man for it, but God will honor it. It's awesome there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so interesting. One of the last conversations I had with my father before he passed, to your point about like school and college, he said, "Baby girl," he was like, "You're so smart, and you're always talking about these different ideas you have, and da 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 da." He goes, "You never wanted to go to college?" And
Wow.
I had a cat. I was like, "Did, what? Did you forget the decision that?" And I said, "Well, look, hear him out." I said, "Well, Dad, well, I called him Pops." I said, yeah, I said I did. I said I had so many plans. I wanted to go away to school. I wanted to come to Atlanta. I
Wow.
applied to go to Clark Atlanta University.
Wow.
It was something about being in Atlanta that was different for me than being in the DMV.
Right.
I said I had dreams of being in student government. I was
Wow.
going to pledge a sorority. I
Wow.
like I had all the things. I said, but then when you made the decision to stop paying child support because there wasn't a plan after 18 and for college with my mom, that kind of stopped. And there it was a significant amount of money that was coming in,
Yeah.
and I made the sacrifice to put my dreams to the side.
Yeah.
And I went to community college, and I worked a full-time job and a part-time job.
Wow.
I stayed in the house with my mom up until I was 21, and then I couldn't take it no more.
I
I
feel you.
love you, mom, but
I feel you.
at 21, I was like, I'm going. I
Wow.
rented a room, and I was like, but dad, I always wanted to. And he's like, I'm so sorry. He's like, it never dawned on him to
Yeah.
ask me what my plans were.
Yeah.
He just felt like he was doing his obligation as a man
Sure.
for the money part. And he was like, well, what would you have majored in? And things like, so we had that dialogue, and I told him, he was like, you know, you're probably not going to like me after I say this. And I said, what is it? And he was like, I have put $5,000 every year for the side for you. I said, please don't say for a college tuition. And he said, yeah, for your tuition, just in case you were going to say you wanted to go to college. He
Wow.
said, but you never said anything to me. And I said, so that 18 to 19
Yeah.
age range for us, our relationship wasn't really the best. So I
Sure.
can see his point. Like, I did not communicate to
Yeah.
him. We weren't really speaking
Sure.
because I was hurt by his decision. And it was kind of like, well, I did my part. You're on your own. If you need
Yeah.
me from time to time, I'll let you know if I can be there for you. And so it was really great, like after years after that happened, for us to have that dialogue before he passed, just so he could hear like how it impacted me and all those things, but to also hear from his perspective. And I think that's a thing what people don't understand when it comes to like restoration
Hmm.
is you are entitled to feel how you feel, and your feelings do matter,
Yeah.
but sometimes you have to take your feelings out
Yes.
and hear from the other person. And when he and I started having those hard conversations, that's when I really got a chance to understand like he never had an example or a good example of a
Yes.
father and being present and being involved and
Yes.
asking questions and, those things. It was just, I'm working, I'm taking care of the bills. This person is over here doing this. As long as you all are following the rules, that's all. So,
That's a really good point that you're making. One of the things I learned early on, and my life was not without challenge. My parents, I told you, they were kind of in and out until they decided in 2020 to just be out.
mhm,
And you know, one of the things I learned this at some point at Morehouse, is that we as Black people, particularly, we have to take account for the backstories of our people, right?
mhm,
I'm so glad that you're not full of resentment towards your dad, and that you have the emotional intelligence to not only navigate your own feelings, but allow yourself to feel what he felt,
right. Mhm,
which was he didn't have a good example. My father did not have a great example. So there's certain things I don't hold my parents accountable to or I don't have any resentment or any of those things
mhm,
because I know the backstory. I know
mhm,
where they came from. I know that my father's father, who I met before he passed away, would go to work. He was supposed to be a longshoreman,
mhm,
which in my family's from South Mississippi.
mhm.
And if anybody knows about South Mississippi, it's very close to Louisiana, which is why my dad's twin lives in LaPlace, which is a suburb of New Orleans, and my dad lives in South Mississippi. It's only like an hour away.
Oh,
Their father would go supposedly to work and go off and work on oil rigs in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, is what I'm going to call it, the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico is what it's called. Um,
mhm,
Not the Gulf of America, it's the Gulf of Mexico.
uh-huh.
Um, and apparently, at some point in life, my grandmother discovered that he never worked, and was kind of just there living a life of revelry in New Orleans. He had a second family and all
Mhm,
kinds of things that were, a little bit dishonorable. And
mhm,
so my dad didn't do those kinds of things. And so it gave me a lot of grace for my father because I'm like, I tell my kids this all the time. People can't give you what they don't have, right? And I'm speaking from the more the emotional
Mhm, mhm,
perspective. A person cannot give you what they don't have. They
mhm.
just can't.
Right.
We think about the physical. If you said, you know, if I asked you, Sister Monica, can you give me, 2,000 gold bars? Well, you don't have 2,000 gold bars, so you literally cannot give me that.
Mhm.
When you think about the emotional and the spiritual, people cannot give you what they don't have.
So
And that
true.
doesn't mean you lower your expectations I would let me say this. That doesn't mean you lower your standard of love for a person. It's you lower your expectations on what you should ask of them because
Mhm,
they cannot give you what they don't have. Here's the other side to that. If we know we had deficits in life, if we know we had things that we were left desirous of, it is up to us to pursue those things to ensure that because we desire them, that
mhm.
we're equipping ourselves to give them to other people.
I
Right?
love that.
Why would we hold ourselves to a different standard that we want to hold someone else to? Right?
Mhm,
There's certain things that I could not ask of my parents, or did ask of them, but learned later on they couldn't give them to me, so I stopped asking them without any resentment. Right?
mhm.
But I know that I need to give those things to my kids. Right?
Right.
And I'm not talking about material possession or
Mhm,
any of those things. I'm talking about certain things that are just really, really uh, good for us to have, right?
mhm.
Like I feel like young people should travel and experience the world. My parents couldn't give me that, but I'm
Gotcha.
in a position to give that to my children, so
Love that.
I give it to them.
Yeah.
My children. There is not a night that goes by that I'm not at home unless I'm formally traveling. But
Mhm,
there is no, oh, I'm mad, so I'm gonna go sleep somewhere else tonight. Oh no, that doesn't
mhm.
happen. But I'm able to give my children that. So the
Yeah.
things that I expected of my father that I know he could not give, I'm not saying that from a place of resentment. I'm saying that
Mhm,
from a place of he just physically did not have it to give or emotionally didn't have it to give.
mhm.
I now challenge myself to be the father that is equipped to do the things that was desirous of as a child and listen to my children
Mhm.
and not just trying to live my life vicariously through them of what I wanted as a father, being that, but independently, three different people. It's so crazy. If you think about my kids' ages, I have to be literally three different dads every day. I have to be the dad of an adult woman at that.
Mhm.
So that's dating stuff, and that's
Ah.
leave that knucklehead alone. That's baby, pay your bills on time. All the stuff you do with adults, young adults. Then I have to be the dad of a teenager every day. Trying to make him talk and make him speak and make him give me more than one word answer. And then I have to be the child to an imaginative 9-year old every single day, listening to him talk about cartoons and listen to him talk about what can be perceived as the most petty stuff that you would ever think about that a 9-year old will be talking about. I didn't stop talking again. I saw you pop off the screen, but I kept going.
It's
But
not me, it's the storm.
I get it.
The spring.
But the point I was making was there got to be three different dads to three different people every day, not
Yeah.
just not just two different genders,
Mhm.
but three different individuals that are also grown, almost grown, and like a little kid for real. Like talking
Right.
about, he asked Emily today, "What's her favorite Sonic character?" She's like, "Emily, I've never seen Sonic, so I don't have a favorite character." Well, let me describe to you what all the characters are. Then you can pick one. She's like, "Ethan, he's a little kid." And then my 21-year-old is like, "Yeah, Dad, I'm thinking about buying a new wardrobe for Japan." So I'm having to talk to her about why that's not a good idea. So this is the dad I have to be every day, though.
Oh my God. No, and I think it's good to point out too that just because a man did not have a good example of a father does
Yeah,
not mean that when he becomes a father that he is necessarily going to repeat the same patterns or
nope,
he's going to give his children the
nope,
same exact experience. I think, and from what I've seen personally through other men, is they take that unfortunate situation and they turn it into a positive. And
yes,
I have seen them when I see their post or when I interact with them, they light up. They're like, "Oh my
yeah,
God, let me tell you, so and so, they got this and they
yeah,
scored this, they got this award, and or I can't be there because so and so has this recital." And
yeah,
I'm just like, what motivated you to want to be this amazing example when you didn't have one? And they
yeah,
said, because I didn't have one, but that doesn't mean that's what I want my children. or my
Absolutely.
child to experience, I know what it feels like to
Absolutely.
experience my father not being present, not engaged in my life. And I experienced it and I felt it. I don't want them to.
Yep.
And I love that you are still very much present in all of their lives
Yeah.
in the different stages. And so, hats off to you. So, I love that. So, I want to move a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, if you have any, hey, Krissa, if I know the word regret is kind of strong, right?
What word? Regret?
Regret.
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha.
If there are if there's anything that you could have done over,
Yeah.
maybe some learned lessons, let's call it learned lessons
Yeah.
through your journey of fatherhood, what's maybe like the top one that comes to mind?
I love the way you frame that. But sometimes we have to have tough conversations, and
Mm-hmm.
regrets are real. Um, the reason why I don't like using the word regret is because it's passive.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm 41, almost 42.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I don't have to move and operate in regrets is that I have time to make right things and to correct things and to build on and learn things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell my kids all the time, there's only a couple letters different in the words between the words lesson and losses, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can look at things through the lens of losses, or you can look at things through the lens of lessons. And I choose to take the lessons, right? Um, so if there are some things I could do differently, I would go back to my two older children and how we navigated the separation and divorce and things like that, because that has a profound impact on children. And I want to be fully transparent. I think it's very obvious that my children love me, and it's very obvious that I love them. Um, our bonds are undeniable. I mean, just it is. But I want to be transparent because this may help someone, and that is, never allow or try your best to not allow adult issues to affect children.
Mm-hmm.
And that's extremely important. That doesn't mean we're not real about things. That doesn't mean we kind of fake and fake it till we make it. But it does mean there's a way to filter adult issues to by the time they get to the child, it's palatable to the child and it can be digested by a child. And I think that's probably something that I would go back and do differently. Here's the flip side of that. One of the things I've noticed about my daughter, particularly my daughter, who's a young adult now, her maturity level, because she went through that at, I think she was like 8 or so when the divorce, no, she was 8 when it culminated, but
Mm-hmm.
6 or 7 when it started.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she has a different level of maturity than her brothers. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's not always a negative. We know the Bible says all things work together. That
Right.
doesn't mean we'll invite trouble, but that also means that we have to trust God enough that when we go through something, and we come out on the other side of it, that there's going to be some good that comes from it. But I
Absolutely.
think we have to. I think that's the thing I would do differently.
Okay.
Um, is make sure that we filter adult problems and issues because we all are going through it together, but
Mm-hmm.
filter it through it to a place that it protects children, that it develops them, and most importantly, really instills in them good principles.
Gotcha. I love that. And even just being honest, regret is a real thing.
Yeah,
Um, but I know there are some people who are like, oh no, you don't use the word. But I mean, you may end up regretting how you handled something, how you spoke to someone. But I love
absolutely.
your perspective of a loss. The difference. There are only but so many words or letters between a
Yeah,
loss and a lesson.
yeah.
So I really love that and how you instill that into your kids. And I
It's
think
really the letter N
that,
is
yeah.
in losses. And the letter N. If you put the letter N in the word loss, you can pull out the word lesson. You turn the E over,
Mm-hmm.
and so I tell my kids all the time, we don't take losses, we take lessons. It's a lesson.
Right.
Yeah,
No, I love that. That's really good.
yeah.
Okay, y'all remember this if you're in District 11 now. Okay, when you're thinking of good things and reasons why he should represent you in your district. But we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Um, if you have any advice for, let's start here. Someone who's a new father,
Yeah,
no matter their age, what advice would you give them?
man, lean all the way in.
Okay.
Number one, be very, very New fathers, that means a father that is pre-delivery, and post-delivery.
Mm-hmm.
You're a dad once that baby is conceived, and once there's an organism and a life growing inside of mama, you're a dad. Be kind to the mother.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely important. Be kind, be present, lean in, because what that does is begins to set up really a pathway for fatherhood.
Mm-hmm.
You have to look at it like this, and a lot of brothers miss this. I got some friends of mine that they're divorced now. I was married to Emily. Emily and I've been married 13 years, and so we've been married almost 3 times as long as I was married the first time because I got
Mm-hmm.
married way too young. And my mom, my wife's, my kid's mother, my first wife, and our friends, we don't have a volatile relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it took time to get there, but we
Right.
we, we made it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But going back to the point I'm making, I think this is very important that um, your fatherhood starts really at conception, going
Mm-hmm.
to appointments and being present. And I tell people all the time, I'm a really good cook, right? In fact, Pastor has made several jokes about eating at people's houses and how good it was and all that. He's told me he's talking about our house, and I do a lot of the cooking. Emily's also a really good cook, but I
Mm-hmm.
cook very well also.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know how to cook prior to Emily becoming pregnant with Ethan. I learned how to cook to feed my pregnant wife.
Oh.
And so I looked at it as taking care of her was taking care of my child.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, as much as I could be, believe it or not, I was a college student with my first child. I was very present, um, as much as I could be. My ex wife was also a college student.
Mm-hmm.
We were both young, but as much as I could be present, I was present, which is eventually how we ended up getting married because I was just present so much. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, well, beyond just the physical attraction, I actually do like you.
Yeah.
So we got married. And then with my second son, Christopher, we were married when he was conceived and born. And I was present. I made every appointment. In fact, when she went into labor, we were actually at an appointment, which turned out to be her last appointment.
Wow.
We were present, and I
Mm-hmm.
helped her do all the nesting and all of that stuff. And I'm telling you, dads, if you're listening, soon to be dads, on the way dads, new dads, all of that, be present because that is the precursor to fatherhood. It is, I don't know, husbandhood or baby daddyhood. Because I know, let's be real. In the
Yeah.
black communities, all of us ain't married when our babies come.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean we can't be good dads,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you can be as present as you can be. That is extreme. I can tell you right now. I know for a fact. Emily probably will watch this later and go back if you rebroadcast it or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she will tell you there's probably times when she is extremely upset with me, and she's told me before. But she thinks about, man, he was such a good husband and soon to be dad when I was pregnant that I got to forgive him and move on. And I really, I'm being funny about it, but it really does set the tone for your fatherhood
Mm-hmm.
and the kind of dad you're going to be. If you practice going to doctor's appointments with your soon to be or expected mom, whether she's wife, girlfriend, whatever partner, and you go to pediatric appointments when the baby's born, it's going to be real easy to go to baseball games and go to school
Oh,
and school plays because it's in your habit of doing something
mhm.
that's not just for you, it's for the child. And before you know it, it becomes second nature. So that's my advice. I know that took a long time to answer that question, but you hit a passion right there. And
Yeah.
audience, please know that she did not share these questions with me in advance. So I'm speaking straight from the heart and off the cuff here, but it's the truth. Be present
Yeah.
from pre-birth, post-birth, and thereafter, and it will set the tone for your fatherhood journey as you raise your kids.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, she talk good.
You keep that same energy for Sunday, Mercedes.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm wondering if we could get Dylan there on Sunday, but we're gonna see.
Who?
Um, her Dylan, her son,
Oh
is
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
that'd be
same
great.
age as Ethan.
My mind went to Dylan Patterson, but I forgot her son's
Oh
name.
yeah,
Yeah, I was like, no, I think Dylan's gonna be in Chicago with his dad.
yeah. Right.
No, but no, that's I can't speak enough on that. It is
No.
easy to go to appointments and recitals and sporting events when you've done it already, and just lean in and do
Mercedes.
it. Mercedes is hilarious, by the way.
She, look, she's a hoot, as my mom likes to call people. She's hilarious. I actually met her back in April
Okay.
at Pastor Adrian Davis's Commas weekend in Chattanooga.
Wow.
Elder Wayne, I don't know if you know this, but I'm Pastor AD's assistant.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so I went. There was an event in April, and her and I met along with a few other women, and we just clicked.
Nice.
And I
Nice.
was like, "Oh, you are a covenant sister."
Oh yeah.
There is a
Love it.
reason why we connected, and so she is hilarious.
That's so awesome.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to her coming and being my guest on Sunday. Her oldest son, who's 15, will be with us as well.
Nice.
And
Nice. Looking forward to meeting you all.
I'm sorry.
I'm looking forward. I was talking to Mercedes, looking forward to meeting you all.
Yes. Okay. So shifting. So speaking to women or
Yes.
wives, mom, women in whole,
Yeah.
what is something from your perspective as a father and a man that you think it's something maybe we're missing, or I don't necessarily want to say we can improve in, or maybe to help give us a different perspective when it comes to interacting with a man or the father of their children,
Yeah.
just some advice.
I'm gonna say grace, right?
Mhm.
Have grace. I don't care how bad or good your baby daddy, your husband, your boyfriend. I That doesn't mean you don't hold them accountable. Let me start by saying that. But I think you have to approach the relationship of a of your the male in your life that is father of your children, whether they're your husband, whether they're your boyfriend, or just your baby daddy. You need to give that brother grace, right?
Mhm.
And I want to say again, that doesn't mean we don't hold them accountable, but it means you hold them accountable with grace. Because going back to some points Monica and I shared earlier, we don't know often. Well, I won't say we don't know. Sometimes we do know. A lot of us have come from very challenging backgrounds as it relates to fatherhood. Fatherhood is a tenuous subject in the Black community, right? And it's heartbreaking. Um, what we see oftentimes with as it relates to, I know brothers who grew up with their dad in the house their entire lives, but they're like, he was a pastor, so I didn't know him, or
Mhm.
all he did was work. He wasn't a pastor; he was a drug dealer, but he came home every night, but I didn't know him.
Mhm.
And I know folks who met their fathers once or twice in life, and it's
Mhm.
so many different variations of experiences, and unfortunately, sometimes we hear more negative than we do hear good. What
Mhm.
that means is we got to give each other some grace,
Mhm.
right? And here's why that's beneficial, more so than to you building up that man and helping to pull the best out of him, even if you feel like he is awful. You can still pull the best out of somebody that's awful. Um, your child is watching you, your male child, your female child. They are watching how you act toward and interact with and speak of their father. And the question might be true that they're awful, they're terrible, they ain't worth nothing, low down. I grew up in the '80s, and well, I'm an '80s baby and a '90s kid. When you call somebody low down, that's it. Don't get no lower than that, and they
Right.
might be low down, right? But do you want to put those seeds in your children, your male child who is like, or one of the most closest example that I have to a man is him, and you calling him low down all the time, and you're referring to him as nothing, and or your female child, your daughter. You want her to say her first example of what a man is this person
Mhm.
that you speak to or speak of so harshly. And so I'm saying for yourself and the sake of your children first, give grace.
Okay.
With that, you can still have a high standard and have a standard that allows for expectations of strength to be brought forth by that man.
Mhm.
Give him grace, though, right? And again, grace is not a pass for mediocrity. It's not a pass for you know um, negativity, any of that. But it's just the same grace God gives us with our messed up selves and our mistake prone selves. God still gives us grace. 70 times 7. Um, there you go. I love it, Mercedes. I love it. Mercedes. I'm an Audi person, but Mercedes is making me like Mercedes Benz is more, because of her name and how awesome she is. But on a serious note, that's a great point, Mercedes. We cannot afford to impart negativity into our sons, or any of those things, because again, they go through life carrying resentment, and we like, where's all this anger coming from? Well, you spent all this time trashing his dad, even though he knows his dad may not be worth anything. But we can't be the person that constantly reinforces that, and so that's just what I hope that answered your question.
No, it does. It
But that's
does.
from the heart, though. Give grace.
Yeah. A couple more things. If someone who, a man,
Yeah.
does not have a good relationship with their father, and they're seeking mentorship from someone who could be like a fatherly figure to them, but they don't really know how to go about seeking a mentor, and maybe they're around certain men, but to them they're so busy. Or what advice would you give to someone who's seeking that, but they don't know the right steps to take to begin having a mentor?
Let me tell you what's worked for me. I don't know whether this is right, wrong, or indifferent, but what's worked for me is serving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean? That means availing yourself not as a person that's always trying to receive something, but
Mm-hmm.
as a person that's trying to give something.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you what comes from that. When you are a giver and people notice that, man, he or she gives of themselves, in this case we're talking about men, and you start to notice, wow, they give of this and that, and they just always have given of themselves. I'm noticing some deficits in their lives. If you've seen some good in that man, he is likely going to say, you know what? I know exactly what this young man. I'm going to use a real live example, and I hope
Mm-hmm.
he's watching or will watch. Brother Marcus Scott, our
Oh,
new
yeah, Marcus.
brother Marcus. He was at my office before I left to come home. He has spent a lot of time around me, and
Mhm.
I spent a lot of time ragging on him. Not bragging, ragging on him because he went to North Carolina A&T and not Morehouse, so I mess with him a lot. But Marcus, he's gravitated toward me since he came and moved to Atlanta
Mhm.
and started coming to Spirit of Truth. I think he's only been there since April.
Mhm.
He's a father. Marcus has a great father. He's actually a junior. His dad's a pastor, and
Mhm.
all of that. But from a professional perspective, I think he wants to emulate a lot of what I've done and
Mhm.
do in life. And Marcus just came up and just started, hey, Elder Wayne, I heard you're running for office, man. What can I do to help you? And
Mhm.
so it's like, as a result, he's around me, and by osmosis, I begin to start to pour into him some of the things he's looking for. But he never came to me on some, I need help, I want to be guided, I want to be this, I want to be that. It's
Mhm.
just because he came around offering help to me. And
God.
I'm not saying that men or we should be expecting somebody to serve us in order for us to serve and pour into them. My
Mhm.
point is, to the point you made, I'm glad you referenced that, Monica, is that some people are very busy. I got 3 children. My daughter is Marcus 24, my daughter's 21.
Mhm.
So I got a young person that I pour into every day.
Mhm.
But Marcus has made himself available to help and be a part of pushing me. So it's like, man, like how can I push you as well? Because he's there and he's helpful. And I'm like, man, like I want to pour back into him as well. And
Mhm.
so I hope that makes sense. But
It does.
I have always believed in serving up, right?
Mhm.
And I say serving those that, not just when we all think about service, we think about helping the least of these and needy people and folks that
Mhm.
have, and all that's great. And Monica, I do all of that.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
it's also sometimes beneficial to us to serve those that are where we're trying to go.
Yeah.
And it's, hey, how can I help?
Mhm.
Not just what can you give me, but
Mhm.
I notice you're building a new business. Can I volunteer? I have X, Y, and Z skill set. Can I
Absolutely.
help you do this?
Mhm.
Or, I don't have a skill set, but I'm willing to learn from you, and you
Mhm.
can give me tasks to do and I'll fulfill them and learn from you along the way. That
Mhm.
is always just a good way to glean from people that have arrived at or are journeying in where you're trying to be.
I love that. I think sometimes And I've had different comments. The reason why I asked that question is because I was prompted as you were speaking. I think a lot of times for people who may not have had a good example, or they don't have fatherly figures, but they see other men who they look up to, but they're either intimidated to ask them, or they just feel like, oh, they're too busy, they're not going to have time for me, so I'm just going to suffer in silence and just try to figure life and marriage and kids out.
Yeah,
And I had a conversation with a friend. I'm like, just ask.
yeah,
How can you, like, to your point, how can you be of service, or just be honest? Like,
yeah,
I need a mentor, or I need someone who
yeah,
can help me along my journey of being accountable, or being a
yeah,
better husband, a better father, or just being a better person, a better man.
yeah,
Uh, and Elder Rain, you know me, like, I'll ask the question.
absolutely. And,
Can I talk to you real quick? I have questions.
and to your point, Monica, sometimes it's not even serving. It's just, hey, can I take you to lunch? Right?
Yes.
I just want to take you to lunch and get to know you better.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not like you're moving with an ulterior motive, because you know within yourself you're trying to better yourself. But
Mm-hmm.
it's not coming through the front door sometimes with, you know, hey man, I need to know what it is to be a better dad. Sometimes some people, I hope I portray to people that they can just come to me and ask that. But I will tell you, some people like somebody like our pastor, folks like that, he's extremely busy. I'm also extremely busy, but I do, I don't travel as much as he does, not anymore. I used to.
Mm-hmm.
Some people you can
That's
just
a
ask
whole different grace.
a whole different place. Some people you can just straight up ask and be like, look, I just want to, you got to eat. You got to enjoy yourself. I got this new restaurant, man. I look
Mhm.
up to you. I would love to take you to grab breakfast there, coffee there, lunch,
Mhm.
dinner, whatever. And then you're able to. Most people ain't gonna be like, man, yeah, I'll go eat with you. You paying too? Yeah, I'll go. And then you get to anybody that's reasonable. They gonna be ready to. So it's serving up
Yeah,
and just making yourself relatable. Don't always approach people with I need, I want, give
right.
me, can you. It's sometimes that can be, particularly when in a position like I'm in, where you're constantly having to pour out and share out. I'm not saying I don't want to, but it feels good when it's packaged a little differently, if that makes sense.
But I
So my
hope y'all
daughter
taking
will
notes. I hope y'all taking notes.
take notes. I'm gonna live one more example, and I promise I'm gonna stop.
No, you're
I
fine.
know when my daughter's about to ask me for something when she gives me a really nice gift. Yeah, I've learned now. Okay, this is really nice. Like she got me a really nice Christmas gift, really
Uh,
nice. And I was like, oh, this is really, really nice. She wrote this beautiful note and letter, and it was like, yeah, Dad, I'm going to Japan in a few weeks. I'm in a few months. This was back in December. Now we're in June. And I know what that meant. She wants me to help underwrite her travels. But I couldn't refute it. She got me this really nice, thoughtful gift with this beautiful note in it. So she kind of prompted, my goodwill. So I'll leave it at that. Find a way. There it is. Find a way to prompt goodwill out of people.
Listen, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
All right.
So let's go into, you have a campaign.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
All right.
So I know you're born and raised in Atlanta. You've been very involved in the community,
Yeah.
even in the political and community aspect. Why are you running? And tell people a little bit about your, I don't know if you call it an agenda, or your goals that you have,
Yeah.
and how they can connect with you, support you. The
Yeah.
floor is yours.
No, I appreciate it. Sister Monica, I'm at a time in life where God has brought me to a place where it is probably the least opportune moment for me to run for office,
Mhm.
because the pay is low, hours are long, it's thankless. It is a real sacrifice, time for my family, and other things that I could be doing that are, more serving of me and not as much of other people. But Atlanta has been good to me. And what I mean by that is there were times in my life as a young person, from the time I was probably 11 or 12 years old until 14, 15, where my family was housing insecure. We were homeless in
Mhm.
several spurts, hotels, ultimately culminating in homeless shelters. And then finally, we got a voucher to live in a subsidized home. Um, and that changed my life. Having housing stability, it really changed my life. And so I have seen what is possible in Atlanta. I'm a son of Atlanta. I am the embodiment of what is possible in
Mhm.
Atlanta. And I will not rest until we fight that and advocate for every family having that kind of opportunity. There's a study that is done on a periodic basis. I think it's every 5 years by the Annie Casey Foundation. It's called the Beating the Odds study,
Mhm.
where several times the study has found, I think 3 times, the study has found that a child born into poverty in Atlanta has about the same chance of getting out of that poverty as a child born in a developing, I don't like using third world, in a developing nation, because many of those developing nations are in countries in Africa and
Mhm.
places of color. And there's nothing third world about my people. We may
Mhm.
be developing, but we're not third world or third rate. But
Mhm.
that child that born in Atlanta has the same opportunity to get out of poverty as a kid born in one of those developing nations. We got to change that. But
Yeah.
guess who's changed it? Guess who's taken that study and shattered it? Wayne Martin has. And I know what's possible in Atlanta. And that is why I'm running. I'm running to revitalize, to bring preservation to some of the communities that are good in Atlanta and strong, like where you live. There's a beautiful development. People live of all kinds of, you probably see people that are very wealthy in your community, and you see people that are struggling, and people
Mhm.
that are right there in the middle.
Right.
You know, so I'm working to preserve the beauty of Atlanta with the tree line and all the different types of historic neighborhoods, and then I'm running for the preservation of that because we can lose that. I'm also running to revitalize
Mhm.
for the revitalization of areas where I grew up that used to be very, very vibrant, and then they've fallen by the wayside, and they've been disinvested, and businesses have left, grocery stores have closed, all kinds of things. So preservation, revitalization, and then the last one is really stabilization. There are areas in Atlanta that had a lot of investment, and they're now vulnerable. Some parts of town you go into, particularly like where I live in Camp Creek, it's beautiful. You got Target and all these various restaurants and stores. But I was talking to a local pastor, a very well-known pastor of one of Atlanta's largest churches, and he told me, man, he was like, Wayne, my one of my church mothers, who was also an usher, called me frantic one day. I was like, man, what happened? She was at the Camp Creek Publix, and a gunman rolled up to her with a gun and was like, give me all your money. He was like, Wayne, this lady is very much a senior. You can look at her and tell she's an older lady. And
Mhm.
this young person pulled a gun on her. Fortunately, her flight instinct kicked in. She jumped in her car and was able to speed away and got to where she was going. To realize she could have died in that moment. If the trigger had just slipped, she could
Mhm.
have
Yeah.
died. And so we got to stabilize areas like that have seen investment, but if they continue to be challenged in that way, people may move that investment, not renew their leases, and then you got to deal with, finding new tenants, and people which exacerbates the problem. So
Right.
it's preservation,
Mhm.
revitalization, and stabilization. Doing all those three things to make sure that every families like mine that may be experiencing homelessness right now, or that
Mhm.
may not be able to make ends meet and put food on the table, have the same kind of opportunity. I'm a living embodiment of what's possible in Atlanta, and I won't stop working until every family in the city has the same opportunity.
I love it. Y'all better vote. Uh, I'm a new Atlantan, right? So can you please share for the people what areas does
Sure.
District 11 cover?
Sure. So those 3 areas: preservation, revitalization, and stabilization, are really reflective of 3 areas, which encompass my district.
Okay.
Cascade Road, from John A. White Park, which you probably know where John A. White is because Zone 4 is right over by John A. White.
Mhm. Mhm.
John A. White Park on Cascade, all the way down to the city limits. I love the way Sister Angela type that out.
Yeah.
Um, um, Cascade Road, all the way down to the city limits of like Camp Creek, Fulton Industrial,
Okay.
and then Campbellton Road, straight across, is like the main artery in Southwest Atlanta, and then Camp Creek. So the northern boundary is Cascade. The center of the district is Campbellton Road, from Campbellton, mostly all of Campbellton, all the way out to the city limits again.
Okay.
Camp Creek part. That's the southern part of the district, and all the neighborhoods that are in between that. The church, Atlanta Campus Spirit and Truth, is very close to District 11. If you go
Mhm.
like one or two exits, it's the church sits in 12, but
Right.
one or two exits, maybe a half mile, you're in District 11. That's how close it is into the center part of the city.
Awesome. I have cousins. They're in that South Fulton area.
So
The
South Fulton is its own city. Uh,
Right.
we all live in South Fulton County, even the church, and technically where you live, Sister Monica, is South Fulton County. But
Mhm.
South Fulton is also a city that's very close to Southwest Atlanta. People think it's South, it's just one and the same. Very close boundaries. If I drive out my subdivision right now, I would
Mhm.
hit the South Fulton line real quick.
Mhm.
But South Fulton is a separate city, though.
Is true. Because they're off of, well, we'll talk offline. Uh, don't want to put my family business out there. But yes, so again, if you are in that area, please make sure you vote. When is the elect? It's November. Or,
Early voting starts October 14th, which is a little over, a little more than 100 and something days, 150 days, something like that. 3 or 4 months, something like that. I should know that. My team would be mad at me if I didn't tell them that. If they didn't know, but the election day is November 4th.
Mhm.
Most people vote early, which is why you always have to tell people early voting day. But
Okay.
it's November 4th, election day, Tuesday, November 4th, early voting, October 14th.
Awesome. Now, how can the good people connect and follow you and support you?
All right. No, I appreciate it. My personal Instagram is Wayne Martin underscore ATL. My just kind of campaign, and I'm an open book, so I don't really have two lives. So everything you see with me is very public about it. But my campaign specific Instagram is Wayne Martin for Atlanta. Um, my website is waynemartinatl.com. And on Facebook, I'm just on there as Wayne Martin.
The admin in me, if it'll let me do it.
No, it's all good.
If it'll let me do it. Haha. Okay, there we go. Awesome. Okay. One, I just want to say thank you so much. I
Yes.
really appreciate your time. I appreciate who you are and your integrity. You are truly a staple in our church. You know, pastor teaches us about giving honor, so honor is due to you on tonight. But I want to thank you just for taking this hour and six some minutes and change, and for holding it down for when the Wi-Fi and everything kicked me off of the stream.
All good.
I appreciate you. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in with us on tonight. I hope that something that was shared and said really starts to penetrate something within your own relationship with others, specifically with fathers, men. Please tap in, watch this replay, share it with other men and fathers that you know, because fathers matter. And I know Father's Day is this upcoming Sunday.
Yeah.
Is just my way of doing something to honor my father. It's been 5 years since my father has passed,
I'm so
and I try to do things such as these, or when I went live and I read from my book. These are just ways to honor him and to tell people that you can restore your relationships. It's
sorry.
not late. If your father and you still have life in your body, there is still time and an opportunity for you to make it right. And I remember one of the things I'll end it with this is, and when I was going through grief therapy,
Yeah.
uh, my therapist said, Monica, I don't think you understand that the gift that God's given you. And I was puzzled. I said, I don't know what you mean by a gift. Like, my father passed. How is that a gift? And she said there are a lot of people who never got an opportunity to
Wow.
restore their relationship with their father, and for it to turn into something that was beautiful, not perfect, but beautiful and better than it was before. But
Wow.
you have had the opportunity to experience what it was like for your father not being there, and
Yeah.
then to experience 13 years of having a great relationship. Again, not perfect, but better than what it was before. She's like, just imagine for a moment when you found out that you had to take your father off of life support and
Yeah.
then watch in the hospital
Wow.
during COVID through this glass door and
Wow.
watching your father come off of life support, and just thinking about, oh my God, I wish I would have said this, and I really didn't mean that, and da da da. And now it's too late. She was
Right.
like, God gave you a gift.
That's awesome.
And I didn't understand it then. And I said, I understand, like, as time went on, and even now, 5 years later, and having this conversation, it's like it is truly a gift. And I encourage anyone. And again, the theme these past few nights has been being present.
Yes.
Your presence matter. So
Absolutely.
again, thank you all. If you're in District 11, you only have one option.
That's it.
That's it. It's Wayne Martin Jr.
That's it. That's it. And
Thank
Monica, I just want to thank you for your openness and your candor and your courage, quite frankly,
you.
for telling your own story and inviting others to tell theirs so we can make our community stronger and better.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll see you on Sunday.
Yes, I'll be there. I'm headed to the gym now to try to walk in Sunday a little bit slimmer.
Oh, I hear that. And Mercedes, I'll make sure to connect you and Mercedes.
Right.
Well, thank you all so much. I love you guys. Have a great
Take
evening.
care. Love you too, Monica.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.